Hello, welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video, we keep looking at the Visions MTGO decks, and we're going to move on and look at Savage Stompdown, which is a nice, straightforward red-green deck. So let's take a look at the deck list here. So we've got 24 creatures, 8 instants, 4 sorceries, 24 land, mana curve off to the side there. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, like red-green, like stompy. So yeah, let's just jump into it and start looking at it. So we've got a single bull elephant, 3 and a green for a 4/4. When it comes into play, you return 2 forest you control to owner's hand or bury bull elephant. Again, I've sort of mentioned this before. I don't know why it's bury. I don't know why it's not sacrifice, but it is what it is. I mean, it's just a point in the game's history, isn't it? When like we just can't have big or like a moderate, even moderately sized creature that's some sort of drawback. So yeah, to drop this like for 4 mana. But so like at the time, like 4 mana for a 4/4 was, I guess, considered too good, too strong. So it's this thing where you just have to bounce 2 forests back to hand. But then I say creatures weren't as big then, I suppose. So it's it's a 4/4 that you managed to play like quite early on. I suppose like for the time, it's okay. Got 2 giant caterpillars, 3 and a green for a 3/3. You can pay a green and sacrifice it. And you make a 1/1 flying butterfly token, which is alright, I suppose. It's okay. And then a single king cheetah, 3 and a green for a 3/2 with flash, which is alright, isn't it? It's okay, I suppose. That's kind of like I'm not gonna lie, that's going to be kind of the thing throughout this deck. It's just everything's going to be kind of alright or okay because it's it's kind of old Magic trying to do like red green aggro with like basically the best tools that were available at the time. This is the one thing that actually makes the deck stand out a little bit, though, is this this kind of little Drake dragon like combo that's going on here. So in the last set, in the Mirage ones, we had the Night Stalkers that combined into Spirit of the Night. So there was that as well in Visions with Kisku Drake and Spitting Drake. So Kisku Drake is 3 and a green for a 2/2 fly, which is always odd to see in green anyway. And you spend green to give it +0/+1 to end a turn, but you can't spend more than 1 green on it a turn. And you sacrifice Kisku Drake and Spitting Drake. You search your library for Via Shivan Dragon, and it goes straight into play, and then you shuffle. And Spitting Drake is basically exactly the same as Kisku Drake, except it doesn't have the sacrifice trigger, but then it doesn't need it because you can't do it unless you have Kisku Drake out anyway. And the only difference is you spend red mana to give it +1/+0 instead of increasing its toughness. And then they're sort of like, I guess, the combined form. I don't know what the actual flavor of it is meant to be. Actually, kind of the same with the Night Stalkers, if they're like fusing together, or like I don't know, I don't know what the intended flavor is meant to be. I suppose is Via Shivan Dragon, who is I normally like Ian Miller art. Because he used to do a lot of art for like the old fighting fantasy books, but and like old like Warhammer art as well, but not his best piece. This is just a very sad looking dragon in my opinion. So Via Shivan Dragon, 2 double red double green for a 4/4 with flying. You can spend red to give it +1/+0 to turn, or green to give it +0/+1 to turn. So obviously like a little bit better than its kind of like component parts, I suppose, but it's just old Magic, isn't it? It's just like an old creature, which is just it's just not very exciting. It's sort of okay. It's I suppose you could argue it's like maybe slightly better than like the classic Shivan Dragon at the time because it can increase its toughness as well. I know I'm trying to make I've got a hard time trying to make a case for Via Shivan Dragon. It's okay. I think but this little combo obviously makes the deck like stand out a little bit. I suppose it's without it like it would be incredibly forgetful, I think. Then just a bunch of kind of like beefy red creatures. So 2 hulking Cyclops, 3 in double red for a 5/5 that can't block. Actually, for the time, I think not terrible. It just being a 5/5 for 5. With honestly kind of like a minimal downside. You obviously want to be aggressive with it anyway, so being unable to block is like not a huge deal, I don't think. 3 Raging Gorillas, 2 in red for a 2/3. When it blocks or is blocked, it gets +2/-2 turn to turn. Sure, I guess. And then 3, it couldn't do Cyclops, 3 in red for 3/4. If any creature you control attacks, it couldn't do Cyclops, also has to attack. So actually, that's quite like an interesting ability. It's obviously still a drawback, but yeah, it's all right. I wonder if it's probably been updated, so like can't attack alone. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, it's okay. Again, like 4 mana for a 3/4. It's a very sort of minimal drawback, I suppose. So yeah, again, basically fine. And then a single Crash of Rhinos, 6 and double green for an 8/4 with trample. One of the biggest creatures around at the time. Just having 8 power would have really made it stand out. So yeah, this is the biggest creature in the deck. It's obviously it's got trample already, which is nice. So yeah, this is okay. A single Granger Guildmage, 1 green mana for a 1/1. We'll ignore the first ability because we can't activate in this deck at all. I don't think we've got any ways of creating mana other than red or green. So the second bit is red and tap. It does 1 damage to target creature or player and 1 damage to you. So yeah, it's essentially like a green prodigal sorcerer, I suppose. Yeah, it's okay. Just ping off like X ones, which obviously were like a lot more common back in the day. Because, like I said, creatures just generally weren't as big. So yeah, this is okay. Obviously, it burns you as well, which is not ideal. But like, it's some indirect damage in green, like in whatever in Mirage or Visions block, or whatever it is. Like, what do you want? And then a single Locust Swarm, 3 and a green for a 1/1. It has flying, so another green creature with flying. The deck's just full of them. You can pay 1 green to regenerate it and 1 green to untap it, but you can only use that once a turn. So this is actually, I don't think, not terrible. 4 mana actually kind of hurts, I suppose, but like it's just. I'm trying to think of what to compare it to. Like, I suppose at the time you had Will-O-Wisp in black, which was like basically almost exactly this, except it had no power, and it was like half the cost, but I think it was rare as well. But yeah, it was like essentially a small regenerator that could just like hang out and sort of like just chump block, which I think is kind of the use for it here. They've got 2 Quirion Elves, 1 green for a 1/1. When you play it, you choose a colour. So I lied. Actually, here's a way of getting white mana. If you wanted to choose white as the colour for this, you tap to get 1 mana of the chosen colour, or tap to get green. Yeah, so it's okay. It's nice in here anyway because most of the time you're just going to choose red for this, so it can double up on the mana. We've got 2 jungle trolls, 1 a red and green for a 2/1, and you pay red or green to regenerate it. Which again, like single mana regeneration, I'm always going to be a bit of a sucker for it. So yeah, this is okay. And then moving on to non-creature spells, like absolute, and then suddenly out of nowhere, natural order. So this is actually the other card. I'd said it was just the drakes and the dragon that made this deck stand out a little bit. No, natural order makes this stand out as well because it's just one of the best green spells ever made, really, isn't it? So 2 and double green. You sacrifice a green creature, and then you search your library for another green creature card, like no limitations on like cost or power or anything like that, and it just goes straight into play. So I think the ideal play in this is actually not to get the Vyashivan Dragon out. I think the best play actually is to use this on like Quirion Elves or like the Granger Guildmage, like like one of the cheap like 1-drops or something, and then just power out like Crash of Rhinos because that's the biggest creature in the deck. You could do the Vyashivan Dragon as well, I suppose, but I think the Crash of Rhinos would be a bit more successful just because it's got trample. So yeah, really nice. There's natural order in here. Like it's actually an interesting thing with all the Mirage block precons in that like the rare creatures are generally not too exciting. It's actually the real gold is found in the non-creature spells because it was just a time when like spells were generally like a little bit stronger. I think they're overall than creatures. So yeah, really nice that this is included. We've got a single Emerald Charm, 1 green mana. You choose, it's a charm, so you choose one of the 3 options. You either untap a permanent, which is okay. Destroy a global enchantment, which is a non-aura enchantment in modern day terms, or a creature loses flying till end of turn, which is alright. I think out of all those options, the untap a permanent is probably best because you give something like pseudo vigilance or something like that. 3 Feral Instincts, 1 in a green. Target creature gets +1/+1 to end of turn, and you draw a card at the beginning of next turn's upkeep. Very tragic pump spell, but it's like, I guess it was kind of all that was available at the time. Yeah, obviously, these days, like, this would not even be a card, but yeah, like 2 mana just give +1/+1 and like draw a card. You have to wait to draw the card. But say it was what was available at the time, and I suppose, like I said, creatures weren't as big, so like even +1/+1 I think would have been a decent buff, I suppose. And then a single Creeping Mold. We like Creeping Mold. 2 and double green. Destroy an artifact, a land, or enchantment. So it basically always has a target. So it's just a really good like multi-function card. So yeah, I like it. Like its inclusion here. 2 Unyaro Beastings. 3 and a green. Sorcery to deal 2 damage to target creature or player. So green burn. This is actually some of the green cards in here are actually very ungreen. So we've had a bunch of green flyers. Now we've got some green burn as well. Yeah, green is feeling very red in this deck. Yeah, obviously it's like overcosted, because it's like green burn. Green obviously doesn't normally get burn, so yeah, but it's still nice to have it as an option, I suppose. It's fine. Single Hearth Charm, 1 red mana for a charm. Choose one. Target artifact creature, destroy target artifact creature, or all attacking creatures get +1/+0 turn. That's probably the best option. Or target creatures with power 2 or less is unblockable. So you don't have a huge number of creatures with power 2 or less in the deck because it is meant to be about getting out. It's kind of like bigger, stompier creatures. So I think that second ability, like all the attacking creatures get +1/+0, is probably the best option there. For 1 red mana, actually, that's not terrible for the time. We've got 2 rock slides, so X and a red does X damage divides any way you choose amongst any number of attacking or blocking creatures with flying, without flying. Yeah, this is, I think, actually okay. It's I think it's almost years later functionally reprinted as Hail of Arrows, which is in white and is in one of the Kamigawa sets. But yeah, this is okay. Just like spread out a bunch of damage amongst attacking or blocking creatures. Yeah, I think that's actually pretty nice. And then a single volcanic geyser, whatever. X and double red does X damage to target creature or player, instant speed. Yeah, it's just instant speed blaze, isn't it? Which is still fine. Like, it's a deck where you're kind of like maybe ramping up a bit mana. So you got the Quirion Elves. I don't think you actually had anything else ramping. But just in case the game goes on a while, it's an X spell. X spells are always good, aren't they? And then 12 mountains and 12 forests. So talking about what could have been, I think the selection of creatures in here, like I said, it's kind of like the best that was available at the time. There were still some, I think, interesting creatures that could have found space in here. Ogre Enforcer, I think, is going to show up in a future deck. I just wanted to talk about it here because I think it's a really interesting card, and I think it could have fit in quite nicely in here. So it's 3 in double red for a 4/4. It has this really unique ability that I don't think any other creature in the game has. Like, it can't be destroyed by lethal damage unless it all comes from a single source. So basically, if it gets chump blocked by like 4 like 1/1 tokens, it won't die. Even though it's taking like 4 damage, because like that 4 damage hasn't come from a single source. It's a really, really unique ability, and I think it'd be really cool to see it again in some way. So it would be fun to have it in this deck, but I do think it shows up in another deck where I'll probably repeat this exact same gush over like how cool the ability is. Taurum Champion could have been potential here as well. It's 4 and a red for 3/3 with first strike, and again has this quite unique ability that when it when it blocks or gets blocked by something that has first strike, it loses first strike. So it's basically always going to hit first. I suppose it doesn't work in future because like double strike, it wouldn't take that away. But like for the time, this meant it basically always got to hit first, which again I think is like quite a unique ability. Savage Twister is here as just as a potential like sweeper that could have been included as X damage to each creature, which could have been all right. And then just some extra green creatures I thought that also could have been included. Panther Warriors doesn't have any abilities, but it is just a big buff, and I get emphasis on buff. Just creature here, so it's just 5 mana for a 6/3. But again, it's just like a big creature, which I think the deck kind of wants more of. Maybe instead of like the bull elephant, this could have worked I think instead. Riverbow, was really surprised Riverbow was not here because this was like one of the most efficient, like good green creatures at the time. Like 2 mana for a 2/1 with Island Walk, which is really, really decent, and single mana regeneration as well. So like Riverbow was like a really good card like back in the day from what I recall, and I was really surprised it was not actually in this deck because I do think it's really decent. And then as an extra potential non-creature spell, Summer Bloom. 1 in the green that lets you play up to 3 additional lands during the turn, which helps. Obviously, like you're playing red green, you kind of like got big creatures and big spells, so you want to like play as many lands as quickly as possible. So I think this could have been like a nice inclusion as well. So overall, I think it's basically just all right, isn't it? I don't think deck space should have been devoted maybe to, even though it gives it like a bit of its character. I don't think the deck space should have been devoted to like the Drake and like Viashivan Dragon combo, just because I think it's like a little underwhelming. Like even by the standards of like the time, I don't think it was amazing. Probably would have just, I don't know, double like just put in different creatures like the Ogre Enforcer maybe, and keep the natural order because that's a really great inclusion. And I don't know. I think it's fine, but like it definitely probably could have been refined a little bit more. But as it is, it's just kind of fairly forgettable, like red green aggro, I suppose. But what do you think of the deck after seeing it? If you have any thoughts or comments or stories, opinions about the deck, stick a comment below. I'd love to read those. I always do. But I'll be back next time to go look at another Visions MTGO deck. So until then, thanks for watching, listening, and have a great day.